There's a kind of a field called systems biology. And what it's doing right now is trying to overcome this problem by taking many different things. For example, DNA, RNA, proteins, regulators, histones, and it takes a lot of different things and create a compound model. The problem is, for human, there are so many different models you could create, you don't know where to start. We at WellAI have done this thing where we developed a new way, not from the scratch, but I will tell you, we developed a new way of using human knowledge. Let me give you a first example. Let's go to the last slide. Sorry, example from chemistry, right? Let's talk about latent knowledge. What is latent knowledge? Well, let's talk about medical research. PubMed has 30 million medical studies. 30 million. Many thousands come out every day. Can you imagine what's going on? Are you pretty sure your doctor is reading a few thousand articles per day? The answer is probably no. The doctor has no time to read even one article per day because they're so busy with the current volume throughput healthcare that we're going through. So, no, the doctors are not reading it. Well, you think scientists are reading it? Well, no, because I talked recently to a scientist at a very prominent center in Europe, Genomics Research Center. He told me that, you know what? When we get a research project on something that we thought we knew, it's called, diabetes, we have to study the new literature for 6 months before we can go forward. The human knowledge is growing exponentially. Not all of it is accurate. There's a lot of, PubMed, but it is growing, and there's a lot of information there. There's a lot of wheat you can separate from the chaff. So there's a team of scientists that did this awesome thing in Nature. Again, Nature is a very prominent scientific website. They created an article, and what they did was they used the model. That's exactly, I will go forward and say that's exactly the same as our WellAI models. They used mathematical models of language to try to summarize human knowledge. And let that sink in for you. For those who were not in the first session, because my first session was dedicated to mathematical models of language. Daniel, what? Language is this, this is poetry, this is, flowery and subjective, and mathematics is something fairly objective, and science, this is objective. Not really, but yes, mathematical knowledge works. I will tell you a little anecdote. One of my favorite German mathematicians once was asked, remember you had this promising math student? Well, where did he go? And the German mathematician said, you know what? He didn't have enough imagination for math, so he became a poet. It's a joke, but only half a joke, because mathematics are actually very similar to language. It can be very poetic, it can be very, very beautiful. But going back to our example, what this team did is they used mathematics of language to try to read a lot of medical papers, read quote unquote, to absorb into a computer. And what they did was amazing, because it was understood that, yeah, we have mathematical language models. They can actually predict some things. They can do machine translation, right? Who uses Google Translate? That's what they could do. We all know they exist, but they did something amazing. They looked at a bunch of chemical compounds, and they said, well, we're looking for a new compound for thermoelectric devices that has these properties, right? It has this conductivity, it's not expensive. And all of a sudden, from the literature, they were able to find those compounds with this computer, with this model. It was astounding. So it actually, there's human knowledge laying in there. In that 30 million article database and in many other databases, there's human knowledge accumulating by the day. The problem with humanity today is we're buried by information. You know that according to latest studies, an adult on internet has an attention span smaller than of goldfish. Goldfish has attention span of 9 seconds. Humans on internet, 8 seconds. But that's not just internet surfers. The problem is we're drowning in information. We can't make sense of it. Therefore, we fall prey to all kinds of, propaganda and misinformation because there's so much of it. So I believe that beyond GANs, which I showed you, GANs generate genomics data, genetic data. The big way forward would be not to develop robots and not to create transhumans and so on. The big way would be to turn around and say, hey, humans are the biggest inventors. We are very different from computers. We have realm of ideas, right? We have something that nobody else has. We can live in a realm of ideas. We can design and invent. And yet many thousands and maybe millions of humans are designing and inventing every day. It just falls by the waste. by the wayside, and we are losing all that knowledge. Instead, one of the biggest drives should be to try utilize the knowledge effectively. So this is an amazing example when chemists were able to do, well, mathematicians were able to do this with chemistry.